Hello and welcome to today's episode, in which we take a humble block of tofu and turn it into something that looks incredibly fancy, but shouldn't be too much work at all. I'm trying to look back on what inspired this dish last night. I was thinking I need to film something tomorrow. What we're gonna make? Remembered I've got a block of tofu in the fridge, and then as I was sitting and watching The Traitors, fantastic viewing by the way, the recipe started putting itself together in my head. I've got a 450 gram block of tofu. I've split that in half, and then I'm gonna crust the outside in some mixed nuts, stuff some miso butter in the middle, and then bang it in the air fryer. So it's a very simple thing, but in my mind at least, it's gonna look pretty incredible. I took the two halves of the tofu block, wrapped them individually in paper towels. So that's just been sitting with a board on top and then just a heavy weight. So that's been sitting there for about an hour or so. I use the tofu brand of tofu. That one is already pressed, but it does come in liquid so it doesn't dry out. So just wrapping it like that will help just pull out some of that excess moisture. If the one you use isn't pressed, put it either in a proprietary tofu press, or just do it like that and maybe change the paper a few times. Just, you know, once it gets wet, just replace it, rewrap it. You can do it with a tea towel as well, not a problem. I've got the butter in the freezer. I made that about half an hour to an hour. I don't know, I've lost track of time. Because you want to mix it and then put it in the freezer so it's really hard, because that'll stop it melting as fast in the air fryer. So I'll leave that until the last minute really. I think I'll do the nuts first, because then that's crushed and ready to go. If you'd like some more evidence that tofu is anything but bland, for example, something like this, like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you tap the bell icon, you'll be alerted as soon as a new one's published. Let's get on with the video. I'm going to chop the nuts down in a little chopper. Feel free to do it by hand. I'm not sure exactly of how much nuts I need. So I think it's better to over make it and then just have some that I can dump on my granola or something, rather than not having enough, because I quite like to do, I think, a double layer of nuts. I'm using Brazil nuts, hazelnuts, cashews, and pine nuts, but you can use anything you want. The Brazil nuts are the biggest. They're also quite hard, so I think I'll do those individually for a little bit and then put the other bits in. Probably pine nuts last, because they're very small and very soft. I've got 40 grams of Brazil nuts, so probably 13 or 14 whole nuts. Blitz them up. 10 grams of hazelnuts. I've used the ones that come blanched. 25 grams of cashews. Give that a blitz. I've got like 10 grams of pine nuts. It's about a tablespoon or so of the pine nuts. Just be careful when you're chopping things in a blender like that, because you don't want to end up with butter. Just be mindful. Yeah, I think this should be enough to do 2 blocks twice, but we'll do each one once and then make a decision. And then I'm just going through and breaking up any clumps I can see. But that's kind of a perfect texture, I think, because it's small enough to cling on, but then still big enough to have a little bit of texture. So I'll put that to the side. To get those nuts to stick, I've made an egg substitute. I put a large heaped teaspoon of white miso in the bowl, covered it with 3 tablespoons of oat milk, and then heated that in the microwave just to start breaking down the miso, because it's a big blob, so I just wanted that to become part of the liquid. And then added in 1 tablespoon of ground golden flax seeds. You can also use chia seeds. The colour doesn't matter either. If you've got the brown flax or black chia, the appearance will be different, but that's the only thing. So I'm going to tip that into the dish. And then I'm going to slowly start adding more oat milk just to get it runnier. If you're in the UK, you can use that Oggs egg replacement, or Just Egg if you're in the States. I thought I might as well make something from scratch for once. So I've probably added another tablespoon or so of milk. Yeah, I think that's good to go. So that can go by the side as well. I've just decided on the miso butter, I'm going to add some herbs and dried garlic to the outside, just for an extra bit of flavour. Half a teaspoon of mixed herbs and half a teaspoon of dry garlic. Just give that a mix together. I'm preheating the air fryer at 160, which is 320, 325 Fahrenheit. Nuts are really high in fat, so if you go too high a temperature, they're going to burn before the tofu is heated through. Tofu, you can eat it out the fridge. It doesn't need to be cooked, but I want it hot. If you wanted to do it in the oven, I'd go maybe 180, something like that, 200 if it's not a fan oven. You could potentially pan fry it, but I've got a feeling that the coating is going to be a little bit fragile, at least to start off with. So if you're having to flip the thing over quite often, you're going to start tearing the coating off. I haven't done this technique, but I've seen people fry fish on greaseproof paper. Again, I've not tried it, so this is hypothetical, but maybe put down a piece of baking parchment, put the block of tofu on it, get another piece ready to go, and then when it's time to flip it, put the other paper on top, flip it that way, keep that piece back, and then use that to kind of turn it, rather than having to go in with a spatula or tongs, that kind of thing, because it's going to create less disturbance on the surface. Yeah, if you try it, let me know in the comments. Taking the paper off the tofu now, and I might go ahead and put the holes through the middle. I'm debating whether to just cut a slit for the butter or if I'm going to cut like a little channel, because I don't want to split the tofu too much. So the piece, the butter is going to go, it's like a log that's going to go that way through it. The butter that I've made is like a 1.5 finger width wide. I've got a feeling if I try and force it in, it's going to create cracks, which then the butter is going to spill out of. So I might just cut a small channel through the middle. Let's do like a little triangle perhaps. Get some little kind of poking device. That's not come out nearly as neatly as I'd hoped it would. You can see there's a hole straight through the middle. So that's just going to create a bit of space. Here is my stick of butter. I've made way more than I need for this recipe, but it's a nice thing to have in the fridge because I've also got some mushrooms that I'm going to roast off in it later. So this was 100 grams of vegan butter. Then I took 50 grams of miso paste. Brown miso this is, and then just mashed it in with a fork, and then I just put it on some cling film and then just use the plastic to help shape it. You can also do the same in baking parchment, wax paper, that kind of thing. I'm going to measure how much I need. I'm just going to take the end off. You can see it's very stiff because it was in the freezer. I want to cut a piece that's kind of the same length, so I'm going to go there. In cooking terms, what we've made here is a compound butter. So there you go, got a bit of terminology to add to your vocabulary. So now I'm going to roll those little bits in the herb and garlic mix. You can use fresh as well. Originally I was going to pop some other things in, but just forgot. So I'm going to put those in and then roll them around just to get a light dusting on there. You can also mix the herbs in and the garlic. You can mix it in while you're making the logs. They're nicely covered. And now it's a case of just putting the logs into there. So I know we're going kind of square into triangle. That should be okay. She hopes. Well, I'm definitely glad I put the channel in. Yeah, do your logs thinner. I got a bit overexcited, I think. So this one, I've made it bigger, but not big enough. The air fryer finished preheating a few minutes ago, so I'm just going to put it back on at 160. The final thing that I'll set up is a little dish with some chicken flavour stock powder. I'll put the tofu in the powder, then in the egg, then in the nuts. You can just use flour or even cornstarch, but I thought, well, if I'm doing that, I might as well get some extra flavour on. Why not? Like a tablespoon or so. Can always add a bit more into the plate if I need to. So I'm going to pat the outside, rotate it. And this is going to help the coating stick on a little bit as well, because if you do wet things onto wet, it just slides off. And we'll go into the liquid, same again on all sides. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to somewhat repair those massive cracks, like use the liquid and nuts as a glue. And then with the other hand, sprinkle the nuts on. Yeah, I might not have enough nuts to do a double dunk. So this looks probably just enough to do each one once. So if you do want to double dip them, just double that quantity of nuts, not a problem. But because they seem to be sticking on quite thickly, I think it's going to be fine. So now I'm just going back through any bald places, fill them up. Slide a piece of baking parchment into the air fryer, pop the pieces in, like that. Any remaining nuts on the bottom, pack them on top, why not? I've just changed my mind. I'm going to put the pieces in this little silicone thing because it's got walls. That butter, any of the butter that leaks out will be trapped inside, and I can just pour it back over the pieces. I've got those on at 160, again about 320, 325 Fahrenheit. I've got them on for 15 minutes and I'll probably check every 5 minutes just to make sure the nuts aren't going too dark. Yeah, and then we'll slice it up and do some eating. So here's the little nut crusted tofu log, looking very delicious. With the cooking time, I increased it to 170 after 12 minutes, just because they weren't getting tons of colour on there. One of them did get more colour than the other, and that's the one, there was quite a lot of seepage. Lovely. After that had finished, then I did another 5 minutes at 180, just to get a big blast of colour on right at the end. What I suspect is happening is the flax egg mixture was so wet that it absorbed into the nuts, so then the nuts took longer to dry out. I think you could get around that by using Just Egg or Oggs, I think, because that's made to set firm. So I think that would get around that problem much quicker. I'll update the pinned comment next time I try it, just to, you know, keep you informed. So let's slice this open and have a little look-see. I'm gonna cut a slice. Yum, yum, yum. That's looking delicious. Ooh, I'll show you the tofu from another angle. So you can see there's a nice amount of colour on there. It's not quite as crisp as I would have liked. Again, I think that is the flax mixture that I put on there. So there's a couple of ways to get around that. I did worry that the butter was just going to ooze out completely, but I think because the miso's in there, it's kind of melded with the butter and trapped it in a little bit, which is perfect for this need. Let's go for it. The tofu's got a nice bit of bite to it, and then the nuts add a really nice texture. The butter adds a little bit of richness, but then the miso, it's got a nice sort of umami kick to it. That's worked better than I hoped it would. Ooh, I think the lengthiest, fiddliest part of it was cutting the channel through the middle and then possibly stuffing that, because you just got to be a little bit careful that you don't just go straight through the side. But other than that, it's a very easy one to put together. I think the only thing stopping it from being a really fast dish is the tofu is going to benefit from being dried out a little bit. But I mean, for example, if you wanted to do it on a weeknight after work, maybe cut the tofu and then wrap it before you go to work and just leave it in the fridge. And that'll take a lot of the time out. If you get yourself a bottle of like vegan egg stuff, then you just need to get your components together, whiz it up, and then it's done. It probably took, I guess, like half an hour in the air fryer. I reckon go higher, just go 180, maybe 175 for 20, 25 minutes. And that'll get the inside warm enough and the nuts brown enough. Just keep an eye on it every few minutes just to make sure nothing's burning. In terms of variations, you could do the similar thing with the nuts on the outside, but then do garlic butter in the middle, like garlic and herb butter. You are going to get much more leakage though. Like I say, I think it's the miso that's helping suspend the butter in there rather than just completely blurting out. I think it'd be really nice to try getting some sun-dried tomatoes and somehow pureeing those down, mixing those with butter, or maybe like sun-dried peppers, something like that. Yeah, so lots of different kind of butter-based ideas. When I came up with the idea last night, I thought, oh, that might be better with a seitan, because then I can sort of pinch the dough around the butter and keep everything trapped in. Just didn't have the energy in the end, but I think it might be interesting to try it with a seitan. While I'm editing the video, I'll think of what the steps would be to do it in seitan, like probably wash the flour seitan would taste best. Yeah, just to think through the method for that, and I'll put it in the pinned comment for you, so have a look down there. If you wanted to make this into like a special meal for a dinner party, for example, or a holiday dinner, that kind of thing, you could do the fondant potatoes or the Hasselback potatoes. I'll put links to everything down in the description for you. And then I reckon the brown butter carrots would go really nicely. Get some tender stem broccoli, you know, cook that very simply, maybe with a bit of lemon, butter and garlic, something like that. Any kind of side dish ideas that come to mind when I'm editing, I'll put everything in the description for you. Have a look down there. That miso butter will be a really nice thing to have in the fridge, you know, so if you want to make a bigger amount. So for example, I'm going to make some, I've got some baby button chestnut mushrooms. I'll put the mushrooms in this little tin, put little blobs of the butter over the top, like on the stems, put them cap down, stem up. But you could even do, like, pop some of the ground, like the chopped nuts, put that on top of the miso butter, and then roast them for 10-15 minutes at 180, 350. And that's going to be a great little dish. When I've got a bit of extra cash, I like buying the Beyond Burgers, and I reckon put a knob of that butter on the last, I do them in the air fryer 160 for 15 minutes. So maybe for the last 3 to 5 minutes or so, put a little thing of butter on the top of the burgers, and that's going to be real special. All of my videos are made mostly with the support of my supporters on Patreon, because their financial support really does make things easier and more affordable, because food prices are bananas at the moment. If you want to join up and give that extra bit of support, but also get access to a bit of community as well, I'll leave the link down in the description for you. If you'd like plenty more plant-based mouth-watering recipes to get your teeth into, like this video and then subscribe to the channel. Tap the little bell icon if you want to be alerted as soon as a new one is released. And then while you're waiting for a next one to be published, have a look at this.